Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome back from the coffee break. My name is Rachel Ainsworth. I'm going to be chairing this session. And our first talk is from Eva Méndez, who's going to be talking about European Open Policies Overview and Beyond Open Science. Just a reminder, you can ask any questions in the Slack channel or in the Zoom chat, and we'll get to those after her talk. Thank you so much. Over to you, Eva.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I would like to thank this invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I know Lourdes for a long time ago from that conference that she mentioned in ESOF. And I think we agree on many things about open science. Unfortunately, we didn't talk, but I don't know what I will say after her comprehensive and very, very challenging presentation. Luckily, I think I will just give another kind of review because I was thinking that since this is a school, it should be something practical and having some tips, not just the political context of the European Union in the policies of open science. I want to share with you what you have to do to apply open science in the context of the European programs, and also why we are here. Because I have been involved for the last 6 years, first in the Open Science Policy Platform. I was the chair of the OSPP, which was a stakeholder group, a high-level expert group of stakeholders related with open science that the Commission nominated to discuss about the future of open science and about practical implementation, what I call the PCIs, the practical commitments for implementation of open science. Because my point of view is that we all agree upon the principles, and we all agree about that open science should be open. But when it comes to applying it, people say, no, I have to just publish in Q1. I have to do this and I have to do that. And this is a very much restrictive context in the practical way. So that's why my presentation will focus first on the open science at the European level, starting for the RRI, which is the Responsible Research and Innovation, which is a meta-philosophical approach of what is happening in the research in Europe, in research and innovation, and also what are the open science challenges. And I will just try to be brief on summarizing what happened in the last 8 years of open science in Europe and why we do practice that in the context of Horizon Europe. And then I will focus on what are the practical issues. Sometimes there are a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of false friends that people think that open science is, open science, this is about paying for publishing, right? No, this is not about that. So I would like to underline some of those false friends and what are the duties as applicants, as researchers in open science in the Horizon Europe, and also in the new context of the new European research area, where open science is a key issue, focusing on many things like infrastructures like European Open Science Cloud, and Nacho was mentioned before, or the intellectual property rights with supplementary rights to be able to to keep the rights of the publication and data. And also another key issue that is one that I do really want to remark, because it is the research assessment, which is the bottleneck that prevents open science to flourish. And this is what I'm going to talk about COARA, which is the Coalition for the Advancement of Research Assessment, that I'm one of the members of the steering board. And we are just constructing a community that I would like to invite you to join us. And then I want to just point out some different issues beyond the European Union. Luckily, Lourdes already covered the UNESCO landscape that came to give us just underlying what we have been saying in Europe in the last 6 years. The UNESCO in the declaration, in the recommendation in November 2021, all the member states, they agree upon the main principles, but also practical implementation. And luckily, it's not only yet another declaration. I have a hashtag that every time that appears another recommendation, another declaration, I say yet another declaration. And this is a toast to the sun, everybody can make a declaration, everybody can make a recommendation. I recommend the policymakers, we recommend the publishers, who are we to recommend? Just recommend yourself to be an open scientist. That's what you have to do. This is the spirit of the real implementation of open science. This is the huge context that I want to just put it in this slide. In general, the responsible research and innovation gathers all these 6 elements: the public engagement, gender equality, science education, open access, but now in the new charter and code that the Commission is about to publish after 8 years of the charter and code of the research in Europe, they will change open access for open science, because open access is too restricted to publications. We have been talking about open access since Berlin Declaration 20 years ago, but now we are talking about open science, which is more an attitude, and it is more like what the UNESCO said is a construct. It's not a movement, it's not a group of people that they are hippie enough to say everything should be free and open. No, it is an attitude, and it's a real practice. And in this context of the responsible research and innovation, the UNESCO recommendation that puts not only open science in the focus, but also transparency and furthermore equity. The European Commission has been focusing all the time in transparency, but probably because our perspective is more restrictive. We don't think about in this broader international context that we need also equity. And that's why I'm very happy that Lourdes mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the 10th Sustainable Development Goal, which is not let anybody behind. And this is what equity is about. It is like open science is about. And when you work in an international context, when you talk to the Africans and they say to you that the amount of budget for research is 3,000 euros, what? The whole amount of a research project? This is 1 APC for publishing. So we are not working in the same environment. So that's why open science needs equity. And in the other side of the new renovation of the responsible research and innovation is the Human Research Excellence Award, the human research strategy for research that every single institution in Europe has bid to get the symbol. And in this symbol means that all the research outcomes and all the research careers are going to be based on open science practices. And in the other side is the Horizon Europe, which is a practical bank of money, that if you want the money, you need to practice open science. This is what a framework program means on applying policies. And what the Commission is that one hand is a policymaker, but in the other hand is a funder. When you have the funding, you can make policies. That's a practical thing. So in this context of the new European research area, the Commission and Maria Gabriel just addresses these principles, that one of them is what I told you, is changing or approaching the new research assessment for the making open science to happen, as well as the European Open Science Cloud, as well as research and innovation, and as well as getting the rights for the authors. In general, this is one of my favorite slides, one of the slides that is more cited than ever. And this is because all the time we say that open science is an umbrella term. And I say, no, it's not an umbrella, it's a mushroom. And then I made a mushroom, which is biologically incorrect, because the mushrooms, they don't have roots, but I need roots. That's why I put them, because the roots of open science are research integrity. We need a new research integrity. When we have ChatGPT, when we have different sharing practices, we need a new research mechanism, a new research integrity mechanisms that comes with the ethical approaches on the charter and code in the policies. But also we need research infrastructures and solid standards that make the open science a real context, not just an intangible thing. Whereas the European Open Science Cloud is a tangible infrastructure to make open science happen in Europe. And the most important is the reward system. And as a part of the umbrella of the mushroom, Transversal is citizen science. Citizen science is not yet another element of open science. It's a part of the transversal approach. All the science should be with and for society. And open science, my favorite definition, I was thinking of putting some definitions here I love the definition of the UNESCO. They didn't let one word behind. It's perfect definition. But my favorite definition of open science is that open science means give science back to the researchers that they made it and to the society that pays for it. Full stop. That's what open science means. Because now we, the researchers, we don't have the research system in our hands. We have externalized our commitment, which is the research evaluation. We externalize the commitment to the very, I would say, very anachronic and inadequate mechanisms and metrics that they were created in the last century, and they are not adaptable to the context of science nowadays, which is more digital, more based on data, and more imminent and quick, and we don't need the journal impact factor to navigate in the new mechanisms of science production. And also, it is super important to think that the science is going to be back to the researchers that they evaluate and legitimize the science, but also to the citizens that they pay for that. Is what about I was also about chiming in the debate before the break on what we would do with the with the private companies. If you have your money, if you are Microsoft and you want to invest your money, do whatever you want with your data. But if you've received public money, it's citizens' money. It's what chemists, pharmacology companies, they do their own research and they don't share, unless there is an international health problem like COVID, and they have a waiver of the industrial property. But in general, if you produce and you pay your own research, up to you, your data for you. But if I pay for your data, you should share them. Those are the components that they are more generic: open data, open materials, open access, and open scholarship, which is the biggest scenario. We call open scholarship as the cultural shift that we need. But if we think about the components that the European Commission put on the table when I was a member of the Open Science Policy Platform, we have to drive the agenda of these 8 components: for data, the infrastructure, the European Open Science Cloud, the future of scholarly communication, next generation metrics, rewards and incentives, research integrity, education and skills, which is a very important issue too, because you cannot blame people to don't practice open science if you don't give them the elements that they have to use. So that's why I so welcome this open science school. And the 8th element is the citizen science. But as I mentioned before, the bottleneck in every single discussion is the reward system. And also we discuss all these 8 elements through different stakeholders, including the publishers. Why? Because we cannot be so naive that they say that the publishers cannot be there, because they are the ones that they want to move everything and they want to grab everything again for them. So this is another discussion that I wanted to have with Lourdes and her presentation, because now for the recreating the research assessment, we are just putting apart the publishers. We are not going to put on the scenario to change the cultural change of any company that is for profit. So we cannot make profit out of the work of the publicly funded research. And out of these 8 elements, that they are the crucial ones, we made these recommendations. We keep making, I call those meta recommendations, because they were the recommendations on the recommendations on each of the 8 elements. And we came up with the final report. This final report that we did in 2020, that it was also mentioned by Lourdes, it was the final report that we did, the Open Science Policy Platform, and we underlined these 5 elements that they are crucial to develop the open science in the next 10 years. To have an academic career that is structured in a way that people can have and can justify to contribute to an open knowledge system. The system of scholarly communication that we have now is not open. A research system that is reliable, transparent, and trustworthy. A research system that enables innovation, which is something that now is on the table. And a couple of weeks ago was the European Week of Knowledge Valorization. Talking about innovation is not only about industrial property rights, it's about valorization to the society. And this is important to do it as an evidence of the contributions of research, open research. And also creating these research opportunities and this research culture that gives equity, which is this value that is really important, and we are just putting on the schedule, and the UNESCO is having a follow-up agenda to analyze all these principles. And also we want to create research system which is based on evidence and in policies and practices. Is what we call meta research or meta science, which is what I do as my research approach, is science for science or research for research. Do research to evaluate how to do better research in the context of the openness. Well, this is a comparison, a clear comparison between the current system, the dominant system, which is paper-centric. I love the RIP, the rest in papers is what the system is now. It's paper-centric, and it's supposed that the system that the open science wants to change the modus operandi is that to have different outcomes that they are as much valuable or much more valuable than the papers. And also incentivize not only quantitative metrics, that is, as I told you, they are old-fashioned metrics. Think about it, I don't know if you know this, but it's like, it comes from my discipline for library science. The journal impact factor is a bibliometric indicator that it was used in 19th century to let now the libraries what journals get the subscription. But that wasn't the time that we have papers, and we need a limited amount of money to pay paper, but we don't pay paper anymore. So we cannot apply the same mechanisms of scholarly communication and scholarly evaluation that we used to do in a paperwork-based. We can not keep talking about papers, about pages, about preprints, about printers, and about publishers. I think we should change the way we communicate science. Okay, so this is also the core things that open science tried to tackle, and is what the Commission is addressing in these three scenarios of alignment. On one hand, the research values, which is what I told you, that we all agree upon the declarations or whatever is said. Nobody can be against the openness. The incentives, which is the other key business of how you hire people, how you fund research, and how you have a career development. Because even if we want to change the world through science, science is also a human endeavor, and it's a career. We live. I mean, I'm a teacher, I'm a faculty member, and I'm an academic, and I'm a researcher. And this is what I do for a living. It's a profession. It's not only a dream of 19th century researchers that they want to research because they could. It's also a human endeavor. And also we have to align these values with incentives, with the practices of data sharing, open access, and if in some of the domains, also pre-registration and alignment. Well, this is the perfect slide to define what Nelly Cruz was said in the first RDA 10 years ago, when we started working with research data. We start thinking about sharing data on top of sharing publications. We have been talking about sharing open access publications for 20 years. And this year, we celebrate 10 years of the Research Data Alliance. So we have been talking for 10 years about sharing data, and it's not yet performed. So that's why the policies are useful to make the principles a practice. And that's why in the Horizon Europe program, we put all these elements that we were talking about in the Open Science Policy Platform. So in the Open Science, through the time in the different framework programs, since the Framework Program 7 until now, we have been evolving in the requirements that the beneficiaries of European projects have to accomplish in the grant agreement. At the beginning, you have to deposit in open access the publications. I mean, Framework 7. In Horizon 2020, we have started to make not always mandatory, but make the data management plan first in a pilot and then to the all disciplines. And also to share the data as much as you can with this principle, as open as possible, as close as necessary, which is a fantastic approach to do whatever you want. So the other thing is that now in the Horizon Europe, on top of sharing data and sharing publications, that you sign that in the Article 29 of the grant agreement of a proposal that is funded with public money of the Commission, you also we put the open science as a transversal endeavor. I remember in 2019, where we were shaping up the open science role in the Horizon Europe program, we were discussing about where to put open science. And one of the things that I did really liked is at the beginning, open science was in the pillar 1, with excellence pillar of the framework program, where the ERCs, where the research infrastructures are. And I said, well, this is a fantastic message, because if we put it in pillar 1, open science is under the bucket, in the bucket of excellence. But we decided at the end, after a lot of discussions and a lot of negotiations, to put open science as a transversal approach. And in this transversal approach means that open science starts in minute 0 when you made the proposal. So in Horizon 2020, you have to practice open science as the results. Now here in the Horizon Europe, you have to demonstrate your open science practices from the very beginning. And that's what you have to strengthen, of course, the open access requirements, fair open data, and also citizen science practices, but it is included in the phase of evaluation. So under excellence, for those that you are familiar with the research, with the research proposals evaluation, excellence is the section where you define the project. And for that, you have to include your approach to open science, your practices to open science, up to 1 page or a couple of pages on how you are going to deal with your research data management. Of course, if you get funded, you will have to make a data management plan. But from the very beginning, you have to guess, and this is something that we have copied also in the Spanish Agency of Research Projects, that you have to have an approach from the proposal. What are you going to do with your data? What are the data that you are going to produce? In your case, in astrophysics, you don't have, for example, as you mentioned, personal data, but imagine that you work with clinical data. What are you going to do with the ethical issues about the GDPR that is applied to the personal data? What are you going to do? How many data? Where are you going to put those data? Do you have a specific repository? Do you have a specific infrastructure? Do you have particular content that has to be underlined? But this is from the very beginning of the proposal. And also, you have to be evaluated. You are going to be evaluated in a European project for the capacity of the participants. That's why I was looking at your batch of the reproducibility. And that could be something that is useful to say the capacity of the consortium. You can say this institution belongs to the SCA, blah, blah, and I belong to this group of people that they get the batch of reproducibility. It's an evidence that you care about this. For example, for my researchers in my university, we are creating what we call a batch, which is full open science. And those people are research teams that they practice with several criteria, the full open science. They have all the publications in the repository, they share data, they have training, blah, 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 and they get this badge. Those are ways to demonstrate at some point that you are that you have a list of achievements and you care about the quality and efficiency of this. Now, let me just go to well, I want to be very comprehensive and explain things that you probably already know, but let's review what happened with the open access to the peer review publications. Here you have the obligations that they are in the grant agreement, so you can read it there, about the licensing, about that you can apply for APCs, the article processing charge, that it always says that is a revolutionary budget from the publishers, but only you can apply for paying for publishing when it is pure gold open access, not hybrid or double dipping publishers, which is one of the things. You are going to be monitored for those open access. And I'm just underlying here, green open access. What does it mean that? Because it's probably the moment, probably it's useful to remind what are the different access models to publications. The most common and the big business of the publishers is the subscription mode. That means that it's closed access to the article, authors published, but they have to pay to access to their own publications through the institutions, and paying, in the case of Spain, we are going to pay for 4 years, all the universities plus the CSIC, 170 million euro for the 4 main publishers, for reading and for publishing, which is what it is called transformative agreements. This is the figures that the publishers has in their hands. Gold open access hybrid means that you pay for subscription, but if you want to pay again, there is open. This is what is not eligible cost in the proposals that they are funded by the Commission. If you want to publish purely openly, the APCs, called open access, fully, completely open access, is eligible. If you want to publish in a hybrid journal, it's not eligible. But it came, always the publishers win, you know? So it came a new exemption that they say, well, if the publisher will make a transformative agreement, we will make that cost eligible. So what the publishers did was making these transformative agreements, and we are paying 4% of more money every year just to get access to the publications and to be able to publish. Only in 4 main publishers: Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, and the American Chemical Association. So only for 170 million. And the bronze open access is what happened during the COVID. All these publishers, they say, well, this is a world health situation. We will open everything. Yes, we open everything, but we will not give the rights. We will not give the licensing to freely use that. So every time that I want to close, I'm the publisher, I open the publications, but I don't give the rights, so I can close it again. This is the bronze open access. And another important thing that I mentioned before, that think that the Commission is checking if it is green, okay? It doesn't mean that if you pay for publishing, it is not that you are excluded to deposit in the institutional repositories. If you decide to publish in the gold open access, you also have to deposit in the institutional repositories in green open access. This is mandatory. And if you decide to publish through article processing charges, you have to wait until you have the embargo period to publish it in the repository. That's why the Commission, and also Plan S, which is mentioned by Lourdes at the beginning this morning, Plan S is not going to all the Coalition S, the funders that they are part of the Plan S, they are not going to accept publication even in transformative agreements from 2024. So there is a way of, we open it up, the publications, we try to make a new road, we try to make a new mechanisms to change the, instead of publishing for subscription, paying for publishing instead of paying for subscription. The problem is that always the publishers win. And we have been having this very funny thing that we think that in 2017, the subscription model will be crashed because it's anachronic, it's ineffective, and it's super expensive. And the institutions, the public institutions, we cannot afford to pay for subscriptions higher and higher money every year. But then we said with Plan S in 2020, no, then we said in 2021, then we say in 2030, and then COVID came and we say, stop it. This system cannot be adequate to address societal challenges or different things. So that's why a commission has created their own platform. To add to the open access, we have to talk about the open access diamond, which is another mechanism of publication. In the open access diamond, which is what Plan S and all the institutions now are betting for, means that the author or the institution pays for publication. It's a platform that the European Commission, like the Wellcome Trust in the UK, or like other initiatives that they are based on the openly available publication without no cost for the author, without not paying article processing charge, is the creation of this platform, which is called Open Research Europe, where if you have a project from Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe, you have to be there, you can publish there for free. And this is how it works. You submit an article, it's preprint published, it's open peer review, is revised by open peer review scientific committee, and increase the quality. And as soon as it is published, completely published, you also deposit that in the Green Open Access. So you accomplish the Article 29 of the Grant Agreement. Let me quick go to what happened with the research outputs, the same thing that happened with the publications, the Horizon Europe and the new era context ask for the deposit of the research data on top of the publications as open as possible, as close as necessary, so you can have justify situation where you don't share your data, for example, because they are protected by the GDPR or the intellectual property rights or whatever, but you have to be very clear on the data management plan, which is the mandatory deliverable in month 6. Same thing that happened with the publications, you are going to be monitored to share your data. And also for some different domains, you are also entitled to contribute to the European Open Science Cloud. It's what it was presented in the first summit of the European Open Science Cloud in 2017, that all the data from research, those data coming from research, should be available if they are publicly funded. And also this was concrete in the European directive, in the directive from 1024 that was published in July 2019, where they recognize as a public sector information as a common good, the data that came from research. And this has been produced and has been translated in the practical implementation of the different guidelines. For example, here you have the guidelines of Horizon 2020 program about how to do fair data, and also in the ERC. Of course, this is about the magic acronym that we have been mentioning all this morning: findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. But this very happy acronym that everybody's happy to talk, it means a lot of work. It is expensive to make fair data. It's difficult. I always say that fair data is 80% of metadata and 20% of PIDs, and we can negotiate the percentage if you want to. We can do it. But also, I think that they are needed more R's. One R that is needed is reproducibility, and how to measure that reproducibility, and the reliability of information. Thinking about all these AI practices and the intellectual property that is rely on the fairness of the data too. Well, those are more the principles. In a practical way, what do you have to do to accomplish the requirements? Is to make a data management plan. What we recommended in the Open Science Policy Platform is not just a data management plan, but an outputs management plan. That means also dealing with methodologies, dealing with notebooks or with other protocols that your research can entail. And also you have to select data repositories or data infrastructure. Luckily, you are a good community of practitioners that you are pioneering, as you mentioned, Lourdes, that in the astrophysics community, you are very well behaved. You have very good standards. You have the VOA, the International Virtual Observatory Alliance, that they have the standards for metadata, that they have the standards for storage, etc. But there are other communities that they have a lot of trouble on depositing, on managing and carry out data. So here you have some repositories for multidisciplinary. For example, we were mentioning Cenodo, that I always say that Cenodo is a repository for the homeless disciplines, that if you don't have a particular infrastructure, you can put always there. But in the ERA policy, you have also to think about the enabling the open sharing knowledge and the reuse of research outputs, not only through the repositories as through individual collections, but in the European Open Science Cloud. This is one of the main endeavors and the facilitators that the Commission makes on purpose to create a very complex infrastructure, meta infrastructure, federated infrastructure, which is going to become a system of systems, and is a way to be a reality, but it's what Nacho and other people are discussing how this has to be. And this is more or less the scientific landscape. As I mentioned, you are one of the disciplines, astrophysics and physics, that you are what we call data-driven or massive data disciplines, that you have a lot of data and they are very well organized in a vertical approach. But also there are many other scientific disciplines that they belong to the long tail of sciences. Or even in these life sciences or earth sciences, you can be part of a big infrastructure of data production, or you can be just a tiny department in a university that you don't produce massive data, but you belong to the same ecosystem of data production. And of course, that always one size doesn't fit all, and we have to come up with different standards and having different agreements of how to deal with these different approaches in different domains. The European Open Science Cloud, and more is called European Open Science Commons, because it was said that it's no cloud, it's no science, and it's not open. It was the joke that the Commission made at the very beginning, the first report that was addressed by Barry Mons. But they have these three layers: the data layer, the service layer, and the governance layer, that becomes with the already existing infrastructures. But all these infrastructures are becoming in clusters, because science should be transversal. But it comes to be nowadays the current system is a very vertical approach. And what we want to do through the European Open Science Cloud is what I told the transversalization or the cross-disciplinary approach to the different domains, where you have to create a metadata layer where the metadata are capable to make the data findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. Even if you are in your own domain, you can just exchange data between disciplines. Why? Because I think the real eureka of the research comes through disciplinary domains, not only in your own very well organized cluster of disciplinary data, which is in your case ESCAPE, that I was one of the reviewers of this cluster of the EOSC. And also not only data, but other research outputs, as I mentioned. That's why we said, instead of making a data management plan, make an output management plan. What are the outputs that you are going to produce? What are the values? What are the assets the digital assessed, or what we call the FAIR-DO, the first digital objects that you are going to manage in your research. Well, this is just kind of, I assume that you will have the slides afterwards. So that's why I just make these open science practices that you have to bear in mind if you are in a European context. And just let me point out a bit more on the 2 more minutes on Quora, because the Quora is what I mentioned, that is the first step, the first attempt that the European Commission facilitate to change the way we evaluate science, and we promote open science in the way that we make the incentivize the practice of open science through the research evaluation. Quora is a coalition that has been created in December. The 1st of December was the General Assembly, but it came out of a very long process of discussions with the stakeholders, with all the disciplines, with Science Europe, with the European University Association, different research agencies, etc. And it became a community. If people ask me, what do you think is Quora? I will say it's like RDA, the Research Data Alliance, but for research evaluation. It's a bottom-up community building approach to think about how we should do research evaluation in a way that facilitates the practices of open science. Because the situation is this: if you are an early career researcher, you have this. Go to the research funding, to go to Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, and you have to publish open access. But if you want to make a career, you have to go to the publisher and pay again and publish again. So this is a context that is completely anachronic. And let me just think over about this. This is the real game changer. You will say, what is Tim Berners-Lee doing in the middle of open science presentation? This is the real game changer. This guy invented the web. And think about this sentence that she mentioned in the 30th anniversary of the web. The web is for everyone, and collectively we hold the power to change it. It won't be easy, but if we dream a little and we work a lot, we can get to where we want. Change the word web for science. It's exactly that. It's for everybody, and also we made science through the web. That's it. So that's why we have created the, this is another of my favorite slides, and also takes into account the how we evaluate science and what are the motivators of will. But what we did in Quora, what the Commission did in Quora, is facilitating a community where we say, well, guys, we are doing research for free. I mean, we are doing research with public money. We are reviewing papers for free. Do you get paid when you review a paper? That's the Elsevier. Or I have a friend that every time they ask him to review a paper, he said, oh, is sell paper? Is 10,000 euros the APC? Okay, I will charge you 1,000. No. No what? Is the Elsevier capable to legitimize the quality of a paper? No, they only put a logo. It's like a Lacoste. So it's good research, it's good pullover. No, it's a Lacoste pullover, full stop. You can have been plenty of, raw thing. No, that's what that science does now. And that's why Quora has now more than 500 members. Guess what? You know what is the country that has more members that adhere to the coalition? Spain. Then Poland, Italy, and France. That they are the 4 countries that they have an intermediate agency to the research evaluation. But we are creating now, well, this is the commitments. You can read the commitments on the webpage. What you do is, but now we are creating a Spanish chapter, and the ADECA has a Dear DORA declaration and Quora, and it's going to be the chair of the Spanish chapter of Quora. I mean, what do we have to do in Spain to change the way we measure science? What do we have to do in our system with our concrete parameters to do this? Well, this is information about the coalition, the steering board, what is what we are doing? What do you have to do to become a member? The CSIC is already a member. The CSIC is already one of the proposers within RUE, the Conference of Rectors of Universities, and the Spanish Agency of Evaluation, is one of the proposers of the Spanish chapter. We are now creating groups, working groups, to discuss how to do it better. We received 32 applications for working groups to do things better. For example, how to do peer review better, how to do narrative curriculums, how to use new metrics to evaluate. We need metrics. People say that COARA will make just a narrative evaluation of the curriculum. Guess what people will write down in a narrative curriculum? I have 3 publications in the journal Impact Factor Q1. I will write it in letter, but it will be the same if I don't have any other indicators. And this came to why I was written a couple of weeks, no, more than a couple of weeks ago, this opinion paper in the El País, because all this system that is not openly available and is not in the hands of the researchers is what is coming to the ranking scandal, that researchers that they are highly cited are paid to belong to sign a paper. This is a scandal of having a paper every 37 hours, which is impossible. The scandal of publishing and publishing again, and the scandal of publishing 170 million euros in 4 years. Do you know how much research we can do with 170 million euros? And that's the point. So my question for you guys is, are you prepared for the new research evaluation? And this is a very interesting joke, because there is, again, not one size fits all. Of course, probably you are a domain that they are data producers. It will be easier for you guys to evaluate you in a database, which is one of the futures of evaluation, because publishing or writing a paper is not a big endeavor anymore. The big endeavor is producing the data, reuse the data, and make them really available and reusable. And those are some highlights for other parts of the world that they have different policies. Luckily, after working on that for 4 years, I was in the Commission of Open Science of the Spanish government to make the strategy of open science. It was finally published last week. Unfortunately, too late, but never, better late than never, and is ready to be discussed under the Spanish presidency of the Council. Also in the United States, NASA and other agencies of research, very research intensive disciplines, declare 2023 the year of open science. This is the summary of what I have said. I'm not that I'm more than behind, and I just claim for reproducibility, and I just put you these questions on the table. What is going to be having a change of paradigm is managing a complex change. And managing a complex change is always a very, very difficult thing to do. And I do really believe in the young generations, that they are the ones that they have to say how they produce science and how they want to be evaluated in a very excellent basis. And of course, what you have to do, and this is very welcome, this summer school or this open school, is to improve your skills in open science. Just avoid false friends, avoid predatory journals, avoid all the enemies that they are surrounded with the custom of open science around. And this is one document that is fantastic for early career researcher, which is the Open Science Passport, issued by the government of the policies of France government. And that's all. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to be so quick. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Eva. We don't have much time for questions, but there was one that came through on the Slack channel, so I'll just read that out to you. It's from Roberto, and he asks, in the slides, I do not see the diamond route to open access. It would be nice to have a position from Ms. Méndez on how the EU and member states can contribute to the economic sustainability of this model.
Yeah, the diamond is on the ORE, Open Research Europe, is diamond based. There are also already 2 projects funded by the European Commission on diamond open access. And the point is that everything will be cheaper than paying the publishers. If we put the money all over the world that we put on on paying the publishers that they are for profit in a no for profit organization, it will be more than enough. This is well, I'm just saying this is the Diamond Commission Open Access, which is how the Open Research Europe works. And ORE was last summer accepted to be part of a Scopus ranking. And people in my university, they wrote to me, "Oh, Eva, we should tell people that ORE is in a Scopus." And I say, I don't think it's a good news. Why? Because I have been convincing ANECA for 1 year that having a publication here, it should be more than having a publication included in a ranking that is completely biased and is completely for profit. If you publish here, you have to have funded research. You have to practice open science. You have to be collaborative, and you have an open peer review, which is one of the shortcomings that the ANECA was claiming with these predatory journals, that they don't show up the way that they did the peer review. So it's much better than being in a Scopus. If the point is that if we keep doing Diamond Open Access and applying the old-fashioned principles, we are just maintaining the for-profit research publishers industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eva. Another round of applause.